Hello everyone, and welcome to the debate heard round the world. This is a revolutionary new idea to ensure that we elect the best possible candidate. Imagine, if you will, a world where politicians didn't sling mud at each other and instead sat down together to work for the best solutions for their community and for the people that they're trying to govern. Imagine that they just sat down and openly talked about ideas and were judged instead by the merit of their solutions and the ways they intend to fix the problems that are plaguing us. I think that that would be a much more beneficial way to have elections and to do politics, is if the politicians actually just came out and sat down across from each other instead of slinging mud and making it about who could say the worst stuff about the other candidate. That doesn't create any solutions. That doesn't tell us where you're at. That doesn't fix anything. So instead, if they sat down from across each other and just threw out ideas, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be tense, but that's the glory of it, is that it puts everything on the table for the entire community to see. And then from there, we could even take ideas that these politicians have and make it about the idea, not the politician, and raise up these ideas and take ideas from every politician at the table and just do what's best for the community, for the country, or whatever division that the election is going on, whether it be local or federal or state or whatever. And I think that all politicians need to do this. And it takes an immense amount of courage to be able to sit down and do something in this manner, but I believe it's the peaceful solution that we need in order to fix our political system, because it seems to be broken right now. And I'm trying to be the change that I want to see, and instead of just complaining, I always try to create solutions. And I had a little boy that passed away, and I promised him I'd do all I could to try and fix the world for his brother and future generations. And so what I do is I just step back from everything and look at the most logical perspective to try and fix everything in this world. I wrote a book. I've done all kinds of stuff, and this is one of the things I'm doing, is trying to get politicians together to sit down and discuss things openly. And I think that that would really change things, and it would really help the community in the election process. And so I have decided to run for sheriff, and I can't win legally because I owe taxes, and I refuse to pay the federal government income tax because I feel that they're committing crimes. And from a legal standpoint and a sheriff's standpoint, I don't want to be an accessory to their crimes and help fund them. So I think I can represent myself in court and win in court, saying I will not morally fund the laws that they're breaking. And I've just drawn a line in the sand, and I personally believe that, and I'll stand up to the federal government by myself and represent myself in court. But from there, I can't legally win, so I put myself out there to try and just say the things and do the things that need to be said. And that's all I'm running on, and that's all I've been trying to do. And with this, I have reached out to every sheriff candidate and asked them to please sit down with me. I've went to these open forums with them all. I've went to the debates. I've done all this stuff. I haven't been invited to talk to all the debates, but I have been able to talk to some places. And so I've invited them all to sit down and talk with me in an open forum discussion with all the other sheriff candidates. And at one point they all said they would, but since then they have all backed out, except for one, Brian Butts. And part of elections is the primaries, and the primaries is the most important part. What people don't understand is that each side, the Republicans and the Democrats, elect their people that they want to go in to office. And that's where the real battles are, because you'll have a group of a bunch of people, and only one candidate gets to go. And here where we're at is a Republican-run county. Democrats don't even run. So whoever wins this race in August will win the sheriff's seat, and the vote in November doesn't even matter because it's already been decided in August. So that's where we're at right now. Here next week, August 6th, is when the vote is. Please, everybody go out and vote. That's a major part of what I'm trying to do, is get the community connected, because we can't control things on a federal level. we can control things right here locally. That's my idea too, is that we could pass around what's called a home rule charter and vote to secede and choose our own ways of life here locally and create our own laws and be able to fix all these problems that we have. We could just pass around petitions, create our own laws, and fix our problems in our community right here. And that's basically my idea. And I'm a bit extreme for everybody else, but I'm not sugarcoating nothing. I'm not hiding nothing. And from the very start, I said that I'm just out here to try and create solutions and give ideas. And so I've wanted to sit down with these candidates and exchange ideas. And I have been open about this forum. And I even said, hey, whoever comes to this forum and is most transparent and open, I will give my support to. And Brian was the only one that showed up. So I now give my support to Brian Butts, and I really appreciate him for having the courage and the fortitude to sit down and do this. And I believe that this is the epitome of transparency and integrity. Any candidate that will sit down and just put themselves out there, that is the epitome of what we need. The epitome of being open and honest and just letting your ideas flourish and put them out there and put it on the table. I'm wanting to try and have everything more open, and so that's what I did, and that's the basis for this video and why I'm doing what I'm doing and the whole point of it all. So this is the interview with me and Brian. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a little long, but we really go in depth on some heavy stuff, and he's very freedom-minded as well. He's not nearly as extreme as I am. I want to just make a perfectly clear disclaimer that we aren't affiliated in any way. This is all me doing this out in the open on my own. That we aren't connected. His campaign has nothing to do with my campaign. You know, I mean, I have no connection to him in any way, shape, or form that has anything to do with any of this. So this interview is going to be a little bit over an hour, and it's just going to be long and in depth, but it is awesome. It's the most amazing interview I've ever had. I can't tell Brian how much I appreciate it. I just wish the other candidates were there. Maybe we can set something like this up in the future, and maybe we can do this on the other levels. I've also been making a documentary of this entire process, so you can find it on my YouTube channel labeled under Sheriff Documentary. The interview is a little bit over an hour, but we go very in depth, and it's definitely worth listening to the entire time. Put it through your car radio and do it while you're driving to work or something. Just please hear us out, and please listen to how in depth we get. And imagine if all the other political races did that, and if every candidate did that. It would just be so refreshing to be able to hear in depth from the candidates in such a manner. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for following along and for keeping up and for listening. Thank you guys. All right, hello everyone. I'm here with Brian Butts. I'm trying to start a different way for doing elections. I think that a lot of time candidates just come out and they throw mud at each other, and they spend a lot more time fighting instead of discussing ideas. And I think that if we could just sit down openly and peacefully sit across the table from each other and throw out our ideas and our solutions and even the problems we have and work on them together, we could go a lot further to help the community, because ultimately elections are for helping the community and bringing the community up. So I'm an inventor of sorts, and I've invented an idea in which I think will help put a lot more transparency and integrity into the entire voting process as a whole. Because when candidates can sit down and look at each other in the eye and just throw out ideas and discuss them openly, it's going to give the public a lot more in-depth perspective on how they feel. And generally politicians try to keep things broad so they can appeal to everybody, and then when they get elected, people aren't happy because they weren't expecting and they were blindsided by people's views. So the courage it takes to do something like this is immense, and I cannot thank you enough for doing this, Brian.
Oh, I'm happy to.
I appreciate this
happy
so
to be
much.
Here. So, and you may have noticed I did get the memo to wear pale blue.
Oh, man. I did not notice until this moment right now. Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
It's all right. It looks good on camera.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I didn't even notice. Oh, buddy. So it's just you and me doing this, but I was really hoping there would be a table full with us here. Chris Edgar was really wanting to come. Unfortunately, he had some breakdowns today with his car, wasn't able to make it. Phil Cannon wanted to come, he wasn't able to make it. Everybody else kind of avoided me and didn't give me much of a. At first they said they would, but then when they got pressured to do a little bit more, they kind of backed out. So I was wanting to have everybody here, and in the thought of having everybody here, I was going to start with a question from the community, which I've seen a lot of, and then I was going to go and have each person, we'll roll the dice and have each person go in order or whatever. And it's just you and me, so I'd let you go first instead of rolling the dice, but we would roll the dice instead of that. And then if we get out of line, any personal attacks, we give strikes. We got 3 strikes to give. I think that you and me are going to probably do pretty fine.
I think we'll be okay.
But if anything gets any out of line, Billy said it better. I forgot the exact way he put it, but if we can keep it about the ideas and not the person, and just keep the philosophical idea of it all instead of any personal attacks. And you could say, I don't agree with your idea and your idea sucks, but you can't look at somebody and say, you suck, I don't like you, or whatever, and that's what these are for, in case we get personal attacks. Like I said, I think we'll be fine. If you want to go on, if there's a group of us here and we wanted to go on to the next question, we would put a red token in front of us, and that would give an indication that we're done talking about that exact question for that candidate or whatever, and would like to go to the next one. And when everybody comes around and has a red token in front of them, we go on to the next question. And that's the way to keep things moving if there was more of us or whatever. And you and me can even indicate that. If at any time you think we're beating a dead horse or whatever, we're beating this dead horse, man. Let's go to the next question. And instead of just saying it or whatever, you can be like, that's my indication. I'd like to go to the next one. And then this one right here is if there was a lot of people here, if you just wanted to talk, instead of everybody just like talking all at once, I know things can get heated, but instead of talking over each other, we would have somebody be a moderator, and they would indicate, and if we wanted to talk, we'd put these tokens out here and be like, that's our indication. Instead of being at school and raising our hand like children or whatever, we put out a token, and this is just kind of my hillbilly way of doing it. First right now, I got checkers and sorry, slider pieces, but it's working. The idea, you're going to get the idea.
Can we still get excited though? Like
right.
Like, teacher.
Right. And these even slide. They have little ball bearings underneath.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
Sorry, sliders, so they can slide out.
That's going to be way too much fun.
Oh yeah, right. So I guess it's just you and me. I'm going to start out with the most common question or concern that I've seen from the public, just repeatedly raised, and it's something that you and me, I feel. Both feel pretty strongly about, and like I said, I just want to sit down and work together for ideas and maybe spitball off each other and just do what we can. But the community seems to worry about federal government infringement. That's a constant thing that I see brought up everywhere. So I guess what are your ideas, or what's your solutions to help the local community on any federal government's infringement?
No. This may be a short topic.
Right.
No.
Right.
They the federal government and agents of the federal government in the capacity of a state and especially a county serves one purpose, and that is to operate to the benefit of the citizens of that county and with approval of the citizens of that county. Beyond that, they don't need to be here.
Right.
And the duly elected county sheriff does statutorily have the authority to tell them how and when they can operate within your county, or to tell them what they cannot.
Right. And that's something that I understood as a fact as well. That's part of the major reason I'm running as sheriff. And I heard you say in a debate, and it gave me chills, that I would sit across from an agent and tell them no to their face. And that is something that I feel is just immensely important. And that's the fortitude it takes to do that is immense. And I cannot appreciate that enough from a freedom standpoint. But from a carrying it out standpoint, what happens if they don't listen?
Quite simply, if they don't listen and choose to operate in your county without your approval and oversight, essentially what happens is you contact each individual agent of that agency and tell them that they have been trespassed from your county.
Okay.
And if they step foot in Camden County again, they will be arrested and charged with trespassing.
Okay. So just a hypothetical, we did pass the Second Amendment Protection Act, and there was an incident where a local businessman had a shop raided. In that scenario, when it's happening, would you be able to step in and arrest the agents on the scene? Or how would something like that go about happening?
Honestly, it very well. The first mistake was allowing them in unchecked to begin with. And make no mistake, although he contended otherwise, federal agents don't show up at the sheriff's office just say hi and have a cup of coffee.
Right.
They show up at the sheriff's office to inform you of their investigation in your county. And the ball was dropped.
So at that point, he would have had the chance to go, no. So the sheriff would have had the chance to say...
Again, it depends. If they walk into your county with a warrant, you have to allow them to serve that warrant, because you can't override a judge. If a judge gives somebody authority to do something, but what you can do, and what should have happened, I don't know if they had a warrant or not. I don't think they did, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Due to the circumstances, as I'm aware, I think they probably just said, we have information to believe that this behavior is happening at this gun shop.
Right.
So we are going to raid it, look over his records, and seize all of his merchandise. That is absolutely not how that should have gone down.
Right.
If they have a warrant, you basically you have two choices, and you can actually you have more choices. To me, there's two choices. You can either tell them, okay, I understand, I will honor this warrant and let you serve it, but I'm going to be there. I will accompany you to make sure that the only items you seize are listed specifically on that warrant. The only actions you take are listed specifically on that warrant. The second option is, okay, thank you, I appreciate it, I will take this warrant and my guys will serve it, so that we make sure the only items taken are specifically listed on this warrant. Interestingly enough, ATF, and actually all federal law enforcement agencies, do not derive their authority from the Constitution,
right,
or even a law. They derive their authority from a regulation. The Code of Standardized Regulations, the U.S. Federal Code, is what gives them the authority to enforce laws. And it doesn't even say that. It basically gives them authority to act as peace officers and carry firearms. The only authority they are given in that document to seize any items is for customs violations.
Really?
Every gun that they took out of that shop, they were stealing.
Right. And I personally think that asset forfeiture, if they take your property before due process has occurred, I personally feel that that's unconstitutional, because you're getting your possession taken
100%.
before you have been found guilty. So therefore, you're losing something that's your property. So I feel
100%.
that
any property
that
that is seized and you forfeit that is not directly related to that crime,
right,
and or evidence of that crime, is also off limits. They can't touch it, or shouldn't be able to.
So do you see a scenario to where you would be able to say, you know what, the feds have your warrant, but your warrant I feel is unconstitutional, I will not abide by that? Is there a scenario where that would be possible?
The only avenue you have, if you read the warrant and believe that it is an unconstitutional warrant, the only avenue you have in that regard is to actually challenge it in the same level of court that it was issued.
Okay. So you could say, I as a sheriff see that and will take care of it, but currently I challenge this, find me in court. And you think you could handle it in that situation? Because there's certain things like what you're wanting to not have I think that like the FDA coming in, I'd like to start see like more of local culture of food and stuff grown here locally,
And
to where we can tell them we do not abide, where there's a
will
line
be
where we can.
also interesting to see, particularly in the food and the FDA and the EPA, because they're linked, unfortunately. The Chevron decision recently.
I'm not familiar.
Essentially, the Supreme Court said that federal regulatory agencies do not have the statutory authority to make up regulations. So another recent example, there's a meat shop in Camden County that the EPA came in and we're going to fine them and basically shut them down if they don't do what they told them they had to do, which is basically an animal waste situation. They came in and said, your pending, your waste handling doesn't meet code as we determine it.
Right.
We're the ones that decide how to interpret the code.
Right.
And so, we're going to fine you out of existence or shut you down until you fix it.
Right.
Basically, the recent ruling states that they don't have the authority to decide. They cannot interpret that. So essentially, if they want to decide that they are the experts on what is a feasible animal waste
Right.
system, or
Right.
kind of pens, or what size, or whatever the case may be, then that agency actually has to go to the courts,
Right.
and say, this is what we think.
Right.
There's
a victim, there's a crime.
These are our
happening.
expert witnesses that agree with us, and ask a judge, can we proceed with doing this? Essentially, Chevron, basically what it did initially was determine that the federal regulatory agencies are experts in their fields. When it was recently overturned, the Supreme Court decided that's not true. You guys aren't experts, and if you want to interpret a law or a code, you have to come to the courts with actual experts that the court recognizes
Right.
as an expert in that field, and make your argument to us. And if we agree,
Right.
if everyone agrees that your interpretation is what the expert witness says,
Right.
then the court will rule on it. We're the ones that get to interpret laws. You don't.
Right. And so from my standpoint, I've seen a lot of turkey farmers and turkey farms around here go under because they say they are forced to update their barns every so often because of government regulation. And what that's done is just made it like Tyson and the super farms take over now and make it to where the smaller farmers can't do it.
Because they're the only ones that can afford to jump through the hoops. Yep.
And it regulation forces it. And what you're talking about is waiting until there's an actual violation and then going after somebody and saying, hey, you actually did something wrong, instead of like bubble wrapping the world and saying, oh, regulation, put everybody out of business because government says so. It's actually saying, okay, there's a problem here, we're going to address it, which I feel is a much better idea. Instead of putting all the power into the EPA, we put it into local and letting you make the decision. So I think that anything we can do to get our hands away from
it doesn't remove their ability to enforce laws.
Right.
And codes. A law is a law.
Right,
and
right.
a specifically written code is just that. It's specific. It's the reading in between the lines and interpreting, well, what the code really means is this. They have lost all authority to do that.
What if okay, just I'm always throwing out hypotheticals. So if a farm didn't hold up to government regulation, but they were still well within the means of being clean enough and having waste systems enough to work, would you, if the EPA came and said we need to find that farm, I guess you would have to go by the standards of the EPA's laws, or would you be able to step in and do anything different?
Honestly, it really depends. That would be situational.
Okay.
If a farm, in your example, meets all local and state regulatory
Right.
codes and laws and everything else.
Right.
And then a federal institution comes in and says, well, no, we don't like that.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
I don't care if you
Right.
like it or not.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm pretty much in the same mindset, and I think that I personally know that I can't be sheriff, but in any situation to where I think that I want to reach out to the sheriff's office, and whoever wins, I want to try to be a personal buffer, because I don't really have anything in this world, and since I don't have anything in this world, I don't have nothing to lose. So therefore, I can put myself out in a scenario to where I can put myself subjected to a lawsuit or whatever, because I don't really have nothing to lose, as crazy as it sounds. So
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. You don't realize it, but you just quoted Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu, I don't.
There's the art of war.
Oh, okay.
There is nothing more dangerous than someone who is fighting for his homeland and has nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of my philosophy on it all, and kind of where I'm doing all this from. And I didn't have a clue, but I just I feel that in certain scenarios to where it was real bad, to where you had your hands bound, I myself could put myself out there and would be willing to just basically try and citizen's arrest of an official, and once they tried to take me to court, at that point it would be a legal matter, and I feel very confident in the courtroom. I know it sounds crazy, but I represent myself in courtrooms, and I feel very confident. I think I could go and actually, cause waves that way. It would just be me basically going, "Hey, you're under arrest," and them going, "No, I'm not. You're under arrest." And me going, "Oh, well, shit, let's go to court." I'm sorry to cuss. I'm sorry. My bad.
Getting all riled up.
Yeah. But that's just my personal philosophy. I'm trying to be an extra buffer for you.
And,
so I'm willing to jump on the sword if need be, and I'm just going to throw that out there to all the sheriffs.
While I personally do appreciate that, I would like to see more engagement.
Right.
Just in general, to that level, I would never put you in that position.
Right, but
you would. The only time that you would ever have to be in that position is if they put handcuffs on me and stuff me.
Right,
in the back
and
of
that's what I'm worried about. Is if that ever comes down to it, there's going to be a situation to where it's going to be you versus them, and I would like to be the one to go ahead and do it first, and be like, okay, they got Butterfield first, and now they're on. I'm just saying, I'm willing to be that. I'm willing to be a buffer there if ever need be. So I guess we can go on to the next question. I think we covered that one pretty good. We both stand pretty firm. I don't know where the other candidates stand, but they are a little bit more for the establishment, and we seem to be a little bit more freedom-minded. Me, I'm a little more extreme, obviously, and this is just about talking about ideas, and I really appreciate you doing this. So I was wanting to throw out problems that we see, and then just talk about solutions. And maybe, I don't know if I can contribute something. Like I said, I wish we had the other guys here, because they have a wealth of knowledge that they can contribute.
Yeah, I do too.
They have a lot of input they can put on. And I know some of these guys have good ideas. I've talked to a lot of them, and I've talked to them in different meetings, and I'm worried that they want me to try and make it ugly and mean and all that. I'm not trying to do that. I just want to try and talk openly and just come for solutions. But they have a lot of knowledge they could have thrown in here, and I wish they would have been here. But what do you think your first problem that you see in the community, and your solution? What would your solution be? Or with the sheriff's office?
The first problem is actually focused in the sheriff's office,
right.
And that is without fixing that, it's going to be real hard to fix everything else. And basically, they have a real hard time keeping the best deputies on staff. And I love him, absolutely love him to death. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But Jimmy and I really disagree on this. He doesn't believe there's issues inside the workplace, and I know there are. For a fact, that's why I left. But we need to correct that first, because.
What do you think the biggest problem is?
Just culture in general, and it's very historic. Unfortunately, it's been going on for a very long time. both within the sheriff's office and just in the county in general. But there's, if you're a member of the select few, or a brother in an organization or whatever the case may be, you get special treatment. And that's both, like I said, within the sheriff's office and even in the community. It's I won't get into specifics, but I actually filed probable cause statements for hundreds, multiple felony counts on individuals after I had left the sheriff's office and still held a reserve. And they were of the protected class.
Right.
We don't go after our own, as it were. And so I learned after I filed those statements that, oh, you don't have a reserve here, so you can't file probable cause statements. And then it just disappeared. They did not submit my evidence and my investigation to the detectives to verify everything or even run their own investigation. They just dropped it. And that's because, those guys were the untouchables in the community. And we have, unfortunately, a very long history of that. And
nepotism, if you will.
It is, yeah. I mean, it is a level of nepotism. It's not, statutory nepotism. But it's just the favored class, whether it's because they're community elites or if they're political allies or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of that in the sheriff's office as well, not to that level. I mean, there are some, there are some people that should have been let go for things that they did but weren't. There's more people that get rewarded with positions and promotions, even pay, I'm told, because they're one of the cronies, one of the a lot of the problem is that every time there's a new administration, or at least recently, they bring in their own people. And place, as a reward for helping them get elected and plug them into powerful positions within the sheriff's office. The problem with that is then you have a command structure that is loyal to the sheriff. They're not loyal to the employees. They're not loyal to the people of the community. They're loyal to the sheriff. And that's a problem.
I've seen it a lot on my end because I'm a different spectrum, obviously, and when I did a lot of my media stuff, it made me nauseous. The people that reached out to me and would be like, Josh, you're doing all this stuff, please help me, and they just tell me their heartbreaking stories of things that happened to them, but somebody was connected with the police department or somebody was able to do this, and they had no justice at all and no way to be receive justice or due process for something where they were harmed, and it made me nauseous to say. I mean, I broke down, and it almost gave me a nervous breakdown. I mean, where I cry and I just like be sick because my hands are just tied, and I'm just a guy, and I'm getting banned from the courthouse and everything else, and I'm struggling my own, and then I got all this other weight, and it made me realize that it's not just here. It's everywhere, in every country, or in every city, every county, and it always has the chance to happen again, because even if we elect somebody good now, it could happen again 10 years from now. We don't know, and so we have to figure out some way to overcome that. And do you have an idea on how to rein in this nepotism or do anything in order to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, that's, I know better. I'm not bringing in my own people.
Right.
I don't have my own people. I don't want my own people.
Right.
And as far as internally, people need to know, well, a couple of things. One, they need to know what their future looks like. And two, they need to know that if they are the most qualified person to be a squad leader or an administrator or a detective or whatever the case may be, that they're the ones that are going to get the job.
Right.
you know, the favoritism and, you know, rewarding so-and-so because he's, you know, so-and-so's cousin or, you know, brother-in-law or whatever the case may be. You know, they need to know that they're not going to get any favoritism.
Right.
And as far as going forward, just community-wide, just we need to get more people engaged.
Right.
You know, and more people just paying attention. And if a sheriff or a commissioner or a judge or whatever the case, you know, whatever the case may be, any elected position, if the community, you know, realizes that it's going on,
Right.
then there needs to be enough engagement and people come out and vote. But they say, not here.
This kind of leads me to my solution for the nepotism, and it could be a copy and paste that we could do for all counties, especially here. Like I said, when I dealt with all these ideas of cops being able to do what they want, and then the more I look into stuff, I see like qualified immunity and stuff like that, to where the system actually protects the police officers and allows them to break laws in certain scenarios. What I did is I invent stuff, and I came up with an idea for what I call a justice box. And it's where we take a box, and on the courthouse, right there at the courthouse, we put a box on the side of the courthouse, screw it right in, and put a live camera on it to where it's a live feed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And once a month, we crack that thing open, and we have people in the community. If there's 40,000 people in this community, we ask as many people as possible. Even if we get a 10th of it or a 100th of it and get, you know, 400 people, 4,000 would be great. You know, if we had a couple thousand people that would sign up, and we draw numbers. And once a month, we crack open this box, and anybody in the community can bring a case, a file of evidence, and say, look, I have this file of evidence where somebody broke the law and somebody did something. So if a police officer breaks the law and he gets away with it, this person can have evidence on that police officer, drop it in that box, and then once a month, the community goes to it. We draw random numbers like a bingo. And every member in the community that volunteers for this service, you get number 1007, 1008. And once a month we draw it like a lottery, and it's completely 10 random numbers in the community. Now there's a chance that a couple of those people could know the people that are being in trouble. So we don't want to do all 10 and make it unanimous. But if there's 10 people that come and do this and open up this box, and they do it live on camera, and they just pass the file to each other, and after they read the file, every file they vote yes or no. And if a file gets 8 yes votes, then it bypasses the police officers and it bypasses the prosecutor, because the prosecutor has the ultimate power in the community to be able to look at a file and have the ultimate nepotism. And I'm not just saying here in this county, I'm saying in every county all across the United States. All the judicial system relies on their shoulders. So there is no checks and balances right now. And what I'm trying to create is a checks and balances where we, the people, can say, okay, you prosecutor have too much power, and we can now bypass you. And we take, once these people decide, these random people, 8 of them decide that this case right here should actually go to the next level, then it goes to a jury trial, and due process takes precedent at that point, and it makes it to where the people have control, and it's a thing of checks and balances. My question for you is, would you honor such a box? And if the people were to do that, would you go ahead and pick up the case on your own and say, okay, look, I had 8 people out of the justice box on the side of the courthouse that said you committed a crime. I'm going to go ahead and file that crime on their behalf, and now it puts it on the prosecutor. Because you may not be able to bypass the prosecutor, and this idea, that's where this idea kind of meets the junction. But with you, you could actually say, okay, you know what, that's a completely community-run thing, but it takes away nepotism, and it makes it to where anybody can be held accountable, and it takes it to where all these police officers cannot do this corrupt stuff anymore. And that's just my personal thought and idea on this situation. I didn't know I wanted to talk to. I was hoping to talk to all these police or candidates about it, but
yeah, and you need to be careful,
right?
With if such a system were instituted. And essentially, what would happen if you did that is you would infringe people's rights to a free trial. And I know you're stating if the people vote to send it to trial, but if it is a criminal
Right.
offense,
That's what I'm saying.
then
It's criminal, not.
then that's not part. You like literally, you would have to change it at the federal level because that's not part of due process. So, if a community were to do that, by the time it got into the court system, they basically would automatically be acquitted because they could argue that I was tried outside of the protections of the judicial system by members of my community.
You weren't tried though. You were just brought. Because in the eyes of the law, like I said, I know countless people. I can't say countless, but I know multiple people that straight came to me and said, look, and gave me all this evidence and said, I took this to the police and the police deliberately covered this up. And at that point, you have deliberate evidence. And so there's a line that has to be, a gray area that has to be addressed there, because you can't just continue to let it go on and try to shed a blind eye and be like, well, you know, I mean, there's nothing, nobody else found nothing about that. So you have to be able to address it, and due process, I feel, is jury trial and judges and all that. With what I'm presenting is just basically a cop going out into the field, and when he pulls somebody over and he says, look, you were doing 75, he has the discretion to go, I give you a warning and you go on down the road, or he has the discretion to write a ticket and say, you can now go to, and what I'm saying is the people are now able to just write that ticket, and they're not trialing, they're not doing anything. They're just doing what the cop would do and saying, you know what, you need to go to court, instead of just ignoring it and letting it never go to court. And,
well, I'm not disagreeing with the ability
right.
to be able to do that. The problem is then you basically are violating state statute, because whoever writes that ticket is not most likely post-certified peace officer in the state of Missouri, and you have to be a post-certified anything that is criminal. Now, if you're talking about using a community-driven process for letting an officer go from a department, or even putting writing this incident in their file, that you'd be okay there. But anything, if you were contending,
criminally accountable when they break the law, though.
That's,
instead of,
you know what,
not only do they not get held accountable because of qualified immunity, they get to just be passed around like trash.
And
but
while,
what you're saying is stopping the passing it around, but I actually want to hold them accountable for the crime they committed.
And see, the system actually is set up to do that. You just have to make sure that the people put the right person in place.
Right.
And
when that doesn't happen, what do we do to overcome that? I mean, that's when we find ourselves in a hopeless situation of just being like, and that's why I'm trying to come up with this idea to where it would put it in your hands, like the public would put a case in your hands and say, okay, Brian, now it's your choice as a police officer, and hopefully, you would have the public eye on you, and all right, Brian, what do you want to do, and you can say, well, based on the information, and if somebody chooses to put it in the justice box, I think they should be willing to put the information as public, as much as it sucks. But if that's your last scenario and you've tried all other routes, I mean, at that point, you can put it up to the people, and I think that even with the courts being behind on cases, maybe even open it up a little bit, some cases, and giving victims the voluntary decision to let voluntary people, public detectives, maybe try to help their case and solve crimes.
The biggest hang-up with that, and essentially what you just described, is Facebook. People are unwilling to post publicly their accusations against somebody or what happened to them, for the court of public opinion. And first of all, I mean, people need to get over that. I know it's kind of off topic, but I actually, one of the things I'm suggesting is basically a dedicated number. Very much like a how's my driving number. Every call and I'd like to see it at every level. Highway patrolman, county, cities, and you could have one number, each could have their separate, but it's a dedicated number. And every time you respond to somebody, every time you do a traffic stop, every time you have an interaction with somebody, you hand them your card, and that's on the back. How was my policing?
All right, it's like a rating.
And it literally publicly encourage people so they know about it.
That's
and
great.
If it was a bad interaction,
Genius.
call the number.
That's genius.
If it was a good interaction, we also want you to call the number, because I want to know, how, hey, I called 911 because my neighbor was doing this, this, and this.
Right.
The deputy that showed up solved my problem. He did exactly what I wanted him or her to do.
Transparency and integrity. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
he was professional, he was
Right.
knowledgeable, and he was effective.
Yeah.
That is what I would like to see of every law enforcement officer. Those three things, because if you are those three things, then you're going to be able to handle the situation as best possible. A lot of times you can't make everyone happy, and you're going to get people that call with either made up
Right.
things. They said, "Oh, the deputy said this,"
Right.
which is not reality.
You'll have a
or
bunch of-
somebody that I wanted them to arrest my neighbor, and they didn't arrest my neighbor.
Right.
Well, I didn't have
Probable
reasonable
cause.
suspicion or probable
Yeah.
cause
Yeah.
to arrest him. So,
Right. It didn't go
yeah,
your way, yeah. But you'll
yelling-
have a whole list of stuff to see as a whole.
Right. And so I think you could pick up if people would actually use it. Again, you have
great
to
idea.
you have to count on, and that's the thing is, it's pretty easy. And particularly, when you hand somebody your card,
Yeah.
as the situation is, calmed down,
Yeah.
and maybe not everyone's happy, but
No, that's a great
that's
idea.
well, unless the guy that gets arrested, he's probably
Right.
not going
He's not gonna be happy.
He's
His
probably
old lady's
not
not
going
gonna
to.
be
He's
happy.
probably
Yeah.
not going to call the number as soon as he gets to.
Right. But at the same time, if the officer has a chance to respond, that would be fair too, where you can be like,
Yeah. And honestly, body cameras
yeah.
are
I think that's
huge.
huge, yeah.
I,
You can't argue with it.
No,
It's all there.
No, and there's a very big. It's very interesting actually. People still have a big misconception about body cams. That the only reason that agencies make their guys wear body cams is because they don't trust them. Interestingly enough, when there was a big push nationally, about the police brutality, if you'd had a body cam, we'd have proof, and blah blah blah. We're going to catch so many, peace officers and blah, because they have to wear cameras now and all this. It actually worked the other way around. The vast majority of claims of misdoing,
Right.
the body camera proved.
Otherwise,
Not what the claim was true,
Right.
but it actually
we protected the cop.
Yeah, so it very much goes
tells
both
the whole
ways.
story.
And to be totally honest, any peace officer that is adamantly against wearing a body camera, there's probably a reason why.
Right.
And they probably don't need to be employed by,
Yeah,
by a policing agency.
That makes sense. It seems logical. I agree with that sentiment. I think we should be able to see what you're doing at all times, and if you don't, then there's just automatically brings suspicion. That's kind of the motto: is if you don't have nothing, haven't done nothing wrong, you shouldn't have nothing to hide or whatever. It works both ways. So, is that your idea, or has that been done anywhere with the response and the cards and the system of that, or is that something that
Not that I know
Awesome,
of.
man. So-
I don't know of anyone.
I guess that's
doing
kind of
that.
your solution for the nepotism. Then, is for
Yeah, and and it actually goes beyond that. Basically that is public input that you can use on an individual level.
right.
A lot of times you only hear public input if something bad happens. And it's not usually a deputy or a officer or whatever the case may be. It's usually something pretty substantial.
Right.
A pretty large grievance against society. But I think it's important to engage the public at every level. Really, really minor stuff. Were you happy? did this go horribly wrong?
Right,
You know,
right. That's important.
Yeah.
You know, like right. Yeah, no, that's and you can definitely see a history the more you have it, and so public input is essential.
And that's something. I mean, I'm getting way off topic here. I'm sorry.
Right. No.
But
I mean,
you know, that's
correlates.
also something that back to the you know, the guy that gets the promotion is the guy that earned it. I'm wanting to also institute a matrix that, you know, if you are applying for a sergeant position, first of all, you know, we have a sergeant test to make sure that you're knowledgeable about the duties of that
So
position.
they don't have that now?
No.
Really?
No, they don't. They don't have sergeant test, corporal test, detective test.
No?
No. Anyway, so yeah, institute that and actually go beyond that and, like I said, create a matrix that your years of service, you know, get you so many points. Your years of service at Camden County get you so many points. Your, you know, positive citizen
That's a good one.
engagements get you so many points.
That's
Your negative ones lose you so many points. And you'll actually create a matrix. And so that
to
way,
encourage them to be positive.
Right,
outreach into the
right,
community.
you
That's
know,
genius.
test scores and, you know, engagements and,
Genius.
you know, experience and, you know,
Yeah.
and, you know, basically, so when somebody comes to you and says, well, why did so-and-so get that job? It's just because, you know, she's a female or whatever the case may be. No, it's because she was the most qualified, and I can prove it in black and white.
That's
Not
awesome.
not just because I say so. It's right here.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I love it. That's a genius idea because it gives you a lot more in-depth control, and it makes sense all the way around. I guess that do you have anything else to go on that for as far as nepotism or how to do anything there, or is that kind of?
I mean, yeah, basically, you know, and the problem is that's pretty much accepted policy in every organization on the planet. It's just not every organization on the planet follows it. You know.
I didn't know. Yeah, like I didn't know there was no test or anything. You figured
so
there'd be tests.
there's systems in place to avoid nepotism and favoritism. They just need to be followed,
Right.
and like, you know, expanded upon,
Right.
you know, to make sure that there's other avenues in place to make sure that it doesn't happen.
That's why I like talking about this because I have no clue, and I think a lot of the public doesn't have a clue, and they just stay oblivious. So I'm trying to like kind of ask the questions that I think the public maybe should be asking, and maybe we can just all see and get the public a little
Yeah,
more
and you know,
engaged too, hopefully.
it's essentially that the solution to nepotism and favoritism in general isn't a simple answer.
Right.
It's you know, it's multi.
There's going to be
you know, it is,
anything we can do.
Yeah,
you know, if there was more.
it starts
grants
at
or-
policy. You know, it starts at you know, it's policy. It's, you know, systems actually in place to avoid it. It's transparency.
Right.
You know, again,
I think transparency is good.
you know, post it.
Right.
The
Yeah.
public, you know,
That's-
needs to
Right.
know about it. If nobody cares, nobody cares.
Right.
Why, you know, Corporal so-and-so got promoted to sergeant.
Right.
But you need to put it out there in case some people do care.
Right.
So it doesn't matter, you know, if you don't get any engagements on those posts.
Right.
And I say posts, you know, there's no
But it's
reason
still
not
there.
to use Facebook.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
This is because it's
it's
still
out
there
there.
for historical record, and somebody
Yep,
can go look
it's
at
out
it.
there.
Even if nobody looks at it,
Yeah.
it's still there.
They got this promotion.
Yep.
This is why.
Right.
So-and-so was promoted and left an opening.
Right.
You know, this was the most qualified person for the job. That's why they got it.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any information
Right.
or, you know, opinion that agrees with that,
Right.
it's out here.
Right.
You know, tell us.
Transparency is the greatest thing it can be. I mean, that's the key. I guess my first problem and solution was my justice box, which was nepotism. So we both kind of had the same problem solution for our first go around. What would be your next problem solution that you see within the sheriff's office or within the community or anything that you have going on? Is there anything, other ideas you have, or?
Well, you know, and like I said, it has to start internally, just because it needs to be done.
Right.
We need basically, regardless of what someone is calling about, if somebody calls 911, the vast majority of the time, they are experiencing a crisis.
Right.
People don't just call 911. You know, a lot of times that is the worst moment in their entire life.
Yeah.
And they really, really deserve somebody who responds to that, who is, you know, those three things.
Right.
You know, somebody that is empathetic, somebody that's respectful, and then, you know, is knowledgeable about what they can do to help. And, you know, that's just it. Law enforcement is actually pretty limited on how far they can go and what they can do to help. And, you know, that is effective,
Right.
you know, is good at solving their problem. And, you know, so you got to have enough staff and good enough staff to, you know, make sure that that's whoever winds up answering that call, you are 100% positive, but that's what that person is going to get.
Right.
And then, you know, beyond that, I very much would like to reinstitute a street crimes unit. They are currently we're using outside agencies. Lenig, we actually, somebody who is employed by the sheriff's office, at least one, sometimes more than that, actually is lent to this organization, and it's Lake Area Narcotics Enforcement Group. That's where the Lenig, that's what it stands for. And it is not focused solely on Camden County, and hasn't been real effective lately, to be honest. I want to bring that in-house, create an actual team. That's what they focus on. They focus on, you know, higher level
Right.
drug crimes. You know, the dealers, the manufacturers, the distributors,
Right.
And, you know, plain and simple, user level. You're not doing anyone any good by wasting a ton of resources,
Right.
you know, to get them
Right.
hooked up and in the system.
Right.
User level should basically be, and I don't say, I'm going to say, the word I'm going to use is not going to sound right, but basically they should be a pass-through.
Right.
Get that person out of the situation, get them into treatment court, and you know, get them some help.
Right.
But higher than that, if you have a team that's real effective at eliminating, you know, the dealers, the distributors, the manufacturers, basically
Right.
where the product is coming from, if people can't get it, they can't use it.
Right. Yeah.
So you know that is going to make a difference there. And also, the street crimes could focus on not just drugs, which is a huge issue. But you know, they also could focus on human trafficking cases,
Right.
which sadly there's a lot more of around here than what people like to admit, and you know, major property crimes as well.
Right.
And you know, it keeps it in house. It keeps it in Camden County, which is, you know, not that I, you know, the sheriff wouldn't want to help out the surrounding counties. They are part of this community. But you know, my responsibility is Camden County. So that's, would want to be the most effective at protecting people in Camden County. So I think that needs to be done. I would also like to reinstitute a quick reaction team, which we used to have, honestly, actually, we used to have one of the best SWAT teams in the country. Like literally went to competitions and won competitions against big department SWAT teams. But I personally have been in situations where, you know, a small group of people that are trained in, you know, hostage situations, barricaded subject situations. Those happen around here way more than what people realize. I've personally been involved in multiple. But you know, if you, and you know, we can get people to show up to them,
Right.
but do they know what to do once they get there?
Right.
And we need to get back to that, just to have that capability.
There's a lot.
But again, you know, you got to have the people to do those things.
Right. There's a lot I want to, I guess, go back on there. So ultimately, I abide by the no victim, no crime principle, and I try to always focus on the more victim. If there's a victim, you need to focus on that. And if it's somebody, I mean, I think that we should all have the freedom, and if I want to go bang my head against the wall until I die and murder myself, I have that freedom to do that. And I think that drugs, as heartbreaking as it is, it falls into that category. And I think that when we go and we imprison load people who are addicted to drugs, I mean, it's just it destroys their life a little bit more. And I'm trying to veer away from that. And I think that the drug aspect is, you want to go after the dealers and stuff. And that's what breaks my heart the most, is that I've lost more friends to legal drugs in this world. And you can drive down the road and you can look at CVS and you can look at Walgreens and it says real big on the side of the building, drugs. And you can go in there and you can get an opiate and you can get any street drug that you can go get in a CVS or a pharmacy, and you can know it's better. And a lot of people who are addicted and addicts prefer legal drugs because they know it'll get them high. And I feel that the drug dealers are not just on the streets, that they're also doctors and they're also pharmacists, and that it's all an epidemic around us. And instead of focusing on drug crimes and imprisoning people and doing all that, we need to open up our eyes to the fact that there's addiction in this world, and that addiction is a massive problem that is being profited on from a lot of different sides. I personally feel that there's for-profit prisons that remain full of victimless crime, people who are nothing more than addicts. And addicts a lot of times stem from a post-traumatic stress incident and something that just really tears somebody apart inside. They want to numb it out. And as heartbreaking as it is, that's where addiction comes from. So I think that we need to try and address that situation more. And instead of putting people in jail, we need to try and focus more on a rehab state of mind. Now, when you say going after dealers and stuff, I think that I personally am always up for trying to come up with solutions locally. And I think that if we could pass a petition locally to hold doctors accountable for when they prescribe, they are prescribing addictions every day, just the same as a drug dealer is giving drugs on the street. And if they don't look at their customers or their people they're prescribing an addictive medication to in the eye and say, listen, this is an addictive medication that will ruin your life, and if you have to take this in moderation, or it will have the chance of digging into you and destroying you. If they don't do that and just prescribe that, especially with like a return customer state of mind, they need to be prosecuted the same as any other. And I think that if you're going to talk about drug dealers, they need to be included. And from the drug dealer state of mind, we need to ease up completely on the addicts and try and work together as a community to put our arms around them instead of throwing them in jail cells and ripping them from their families and trying to treat them like trash, while at the same time doing the same thing and allowing doctors to prescribe these same exact drugs and these same exact addictions that have the same ingredients as these street drugs, and allow it to happen all day long and cherish it and prop it up and allow it to happen. We need to open up our eyes to addiction and try and help people, and at the same time, the dealers on all aspects, maybe go after them and hold them accountable. What do you see as a way? Like, I personally think that maybe we could give lower end people vouchers for like an NA program, and they have to go get signed off from like an NA or an AA or just anything. I know some of these other guys, I know Phil Cannon had an idea. I wish he would have been here to talk about it. But like even drug court, I don't know how drug court works that well, but I myself have dealt with addiction in my life through alcohol, and you know, it's everywhere, and I can go get that at any street corner anytime. And it's ruined a lot of people's lives in my family as well. And it's right there, and it's almost cherished and celebrated by everybody. Everybody's like, oh, party, yeah, you know. And But at the same time, that addiction is still there that's ruining people's lives. And I think that we just need to focus more on addiction and realizing that it's an epidemic that is just so easy to control people's lives, and maybe work together to try and overcome it instead of throwing people in jail. And that's just my personal thing, but what I'm wanting to see is maybe possibly a voucher system to where, like I said, no victim, no crime. If they're neglecting their kids, that's a crime. You need to go to jail. You know, if you're still in copper for meth, you know, you've committed a crime. You need to go to jail. But until that happens, go bang your head against the wall until you die. That's your free will. And then we're going to go after the dealers. What do you think about such an idea as that?
Actually, I agree.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
If your behavior isn't hurting anyone else, I don't care.
Right.
That's your personal choice. Now, there is a caveat there, because if your personal choice is substance, regardless of what the substance is, then it gets to a point to where it becomes not a personal choice. It becomes a need. Right. And you know, that's where treatment right. comes into play. Hopefully before it gets to the point that you are harming others,
right? Because
that's basically where addiction leads.
Right.
You know, that's a cycle of addiction.
Right.
Is that eventually you will not care about anyone but the substance,
right.
And you know, so you're gonna steal their stuff.
Right.
You know, you're gonna smack them around. You're gonna, you know, and once you get to that point, it's too late purely for treatment and recovery.
Right.
You know, then we need to intervene because you know, at that point you're harming other people.
Right. Absolutely.
And
absolutely,
you know,
justice has to occur.
Yeah.
And there's a victim. There's no victim,
right,
no crime.
Right. Yep.
Up until there's a victim, once the second there's a victim, you're
yep.
in trouble. But
yep.
until there's a victim, no crime. And that's just.
And we are very lucky here, because we actually do have a treatment court that is dedicated to user level. And multi-substance. It's not just drug court. Right. It actually is treatment court, and that's what it focuses on. You know, well, a lot of places don't even have that, right. And even more actually have drug courts that, you know, okay, if you promise not to use, then we'll move you to this court and we'll monitor and blah, blah, blah. But if you use once, then you're getting kicked back to the other system. Whereas treatment court actually isn't just focused on the substance abuse, where they say, okay, you're here, but don't use it. They actually help. They actually provide options. They actually provide counseling.
Right.
And they actually are able to, on an individual basis, okay, you know, what does this person have going on in their life that is causing them to abuse a substance,
right? As
opposed to what this person has, because you know, everyone's situation is different,
right?
And so, you know, that we're really, really lucky that we do have that as an asset in this county, as kind of an intermediary. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. I got you.
You know, as opposed to just, well, you know, right. You used, go to prison.
Right.
You know, that
Right.
That doesn't help.
Right. And I think that's a great intermediary, but I do know people that have been through the program, and from a little bit of an outsider's perspective, it seems like there's a lot of money incentive around that, and that they have to pay a lot of money. And when you have somebody that's struggling to make ends meet, a lot of time addicts are just absolutely at wit's end. And when you take that and add that financial burden to them of, all right, well, now you're either going to go to jail, or you got to add this financial burden, or you don't. And then they may have to, that puts more of a, you know, well, I'm already struggling to feed my kid, but now I got to do this, or I go to jail. And then, no. So what I'm trying to do is almost, maybe for minor things, maybe just give a voucher and something that says, you know what, you need to go to rehab and just get this signed off. If you don't do this, this is going to be like a warning. We have some kind of system, something to give just a little bit of more of a buffer to protect. And would you be up for something like that?
I would be up for something like that.
I know you don't want to you don't want to enable somebody at the same time. You don't enable,
no.
But
at the same time, you that's different than enable.
Right. It is.
I would love something like that. Unfortunately, that's way out of any of either of our control. And now, proposing that, to state and higher legislatures, that'd be, that is something that we can do. I don't know how, much traction we could get, but or even creating a public campaign to get more people involved, so it's doable. But it's neither one of us can snap our fingers and make it happen.
My idea was with my home rule charter. If we do a home rule charter, we can have more. If a local community votes on a home rule charter, it gives them power to decide their laws a little bit more. So at that place, we could also pass a petition to do a voucher system for minor drug offenses, and then the people could legally put in place through a petition in effect locally, somewhere where we can control it without having to go to the great expense of state level.
And
it's something we can do
again,
on an easier level. Because I'm always trying to give local communities.
That's not outside the realm of possibility. To actually create the program locally.
Right.
Even the right people might even be able to get outside funding.
Right.
As a pilot program for whatever.
Right.
But I would love that.
Awesome.
There actually are. I wish that you didn't have to, and that would be a great solution to this. But I actually know people. I've actually arrested people, but I've run into years later that have told me, that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
Because the only reason I did it was I got them into a system where they could get into rehab. Even though it's court ordered, but it's also court funded. So I don't like that you have to take away their freedom briefly to get them the help that they need. We really need to come up with a program that bypasses that step and gets them straight to.
And that's what I'm trying to just work together. And I know that Phil Cannon had some ideas, and that's why I wish we were all here, because this is a very beneficial conversation. I think the way this is working great. So, quarter to 8. All right.
I think we can probably close it.
Can I do one more?
I think we can close it up pretty quick.
I got one more little thing I wanted to throw at you. I kind of threw this by all the other police officers, and it had to do with your wanting to do a rapid police force. So I guess I don't know quite how to explain this, but what I want to do is I've seen some things in my personal experiences. There was an incident that happened with somebody I knew, and it was a major thing, and the guy took off and ran into the woods, and it was for a very major crime. And I knew that it had happened, and I myself as a civilian went with my dogs and went in the woods and went looking for the guy. And when I was out there, I never saw one police officer, and I know it was within an hour of this incident happening, and they should have been doing a manhunt in the woods for this guy. And as I was going through the woods, I also realized that none of these people knew that this guy had just done this and all this bad thing, and he could be in any other places at any time. And I was really, it struck a nerve. So the question became, how do we have a rapid response unit? And that seems to be a thing within the police officers. They're overburdened with work and fines or money. Their budgets are struggling. So if we could put a volunteer police department in effect into local communities and even subdivisions and lake roads, to where retired police officers, the other police officers said they would have to have a post-certification for legal reasons and stuff like that. But I don't see why a volunteer like me couldn't start like a peace officer. This is something I'm wanting to do. If I somehow got, enough traction, or somehow I would start a peace officer separate to where I'm basically on my own and keep a camera on myself and do things to try and help you. But to where we have a local community sign up and be police officers, be willing to be police officers. And if you would offer a course for like a couple weekends to have them certified, and even in our communities we could vote them into place and have our communities come together and have a town hall meeting on Lake Road, 518 or whatever, or 571, and just, this is Lake Road 571, our meeting, these are the people we're going to elect, and then we're going to send them to this, and this is going to be our immediate response. And every community around the lake does that. And with the other officers, police time is a big burden and stuff, and I want to see police officers, instead of worrying about victimless crimes or small frivolous stuff, be actually solving crimes and protecting our community much more. And so in order to free up this manpower, if we had local community volunteers being able to even go file paperwork, and like the one commissioner gave a scenario of a dog bite, somebody he saw get bit by a dog, and 4 officers showed up to take paperwork all the way out in Climax Springs. And that was just a waste of funds and stuff, when somebody local could have just went, filed that report, turned it in, and at that point you could give instead of having all these people on the payroll, you could do a by response basis, and these people could be all volunteers, and if you did want to make it, you could have a budget set up for that and be like, okay, we pay you $100 or $50 to just do the paperwork, and it saves us from going all the way out there, and we can apply ourselves towards solving crimes. And would you be up to working with a public peace force or peace officer force, or even reserves, or doing something to set in place to where you could help create a public police force?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
And essentially, what would have to happen is there would be some training involved.
Right.
Training and certification. And in that example that you gave, basically, if EMS shows up, the community protection force, or whatever you want to call it, would show up and be like, do I need to file any reports?
Right.
And that's basically what the training would concentrate on, is witness statements, affidavits.
Right.
Okay, yeah, well, he got attacked by a dog, he got torn up pretty bad, is what the EMS crew would say.
Right.
And that person could get there and, like I said, take witness statements.
Right.
And that's what the training would involve, is this is how you effectively fill out this form.
Right.
Witness statement, affidavit.
Right.
This is what I saw. I know this is so and so's dog.
Right. Right.
And dog bit guy, dog ran off, ran back. I saw him get let into this house.
Right.
And essentially, that's all we would need.
Right.
For if everything is documented locally. Right. And correctly, you can then actually submit that to the sheriff's office. We've got all the witness statements. We know what happened.
Right.
So basically, you don't waste the deputy's time going around house to house asking people what happened.
And it would be a faster response, and it would be even like on that bigger case that I gave an example of, to where even the local community wouldn't be as much, because it was a very dangerous situation. This guy did a very bad crime and was armed and dangerous and running out. That's when I was like in the woods and stuff, but
well, that's not okay. That nobody showed up.
There were people there. They were at the house where they had it all quarantined off, but there was nobody in the woods behind the house.
No, that's not okay. You gotta have.
And what I'm saying is, this force could actually let the neighbors know, and we could have a text to where, okay, we let the local 571. We sent them a text saying there's something big happened, and then they all text their neighbors, and you have an immediate response system in every community.
And honestly, there's not that I would like to get the sheriff's office involved in a system like that.
Right.
But they don't need to be.
Right. We can probably do it voluntarily. That's what I'm trying.
Communities, individual small communities and neighborhoods
right.
need to get together and know each other's names, know each other's phone numbers.
Right.
Know who
so
lives
you
there
would be
full
up
time.
For working with that's what
100%,
I'm talking about. Is where would
100%.
You're a little more receptive than some of the other guys were more receptive, and some of them weren't, because there was a forum where we were able to kind of talk. They didn't let me record or anything. I wish they would have, but I ran it by others, and like I said, you're very receptive to that. And I think it would really help the police officers, police department as a whole, and it would lower the budget. It would be able to free up stuff, and free up officers. And,
see, here's the thing.
And efficiency.
In this country, you are responsible for your own safety.
Right.
You're door number one.
Right.
Like somebody kicking in your door, you're the first door.
Right.
In your neighborhood, in your community,
Right.
if they are a group of people that are responsible for each other's safety,
Right.
you're going to be more effective at providing a safety net for everyone in that neighborhood or community, or a couple of houses, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely, I would not only work with them and encourage them to do that. I actually would be willing to, put on training.
Yeah, and help do paperwork. If we can help you do paperwork.
Here's what you need to do.
Right.
Here's what you can do.
Right.
Here's what you cannot do, or else you're going to wind up.
Right.
Because there is a line.
A camera, I think, is still always. I think a camera is always educated. But we have cell phones now. We could just.
Yeah. Yes, but basically, there's no reason why. Again, a caveat. There's no reason why you shouldn't film every interaction you have with somebody who is you're professing is a criminal. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to film any interaction you have with somebody who is a law enforcement officer.
Right.
The caveat is, depending on the situation and how that goes, just be aware that you might lose your phone for a while, because if it is deemed as evidentiary value,
that makes sense.
Could help, actually send this guy to prison in a court of law. They're going to take your phone.
Well, all right. So they keep an extra. Have an extra. Your old one from years ago.
Yeah.
So I guess that just kind of covers it, because I'm always trying to figure out ways to make things more efficient, make it work better, and some of my ideas are kind of wild and out there, and some of them are doable, and I really appreciate you taking the time to.
Oh man, I was happy.
Yeah,
happy to have it.
I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this and how beneficial I think this is, and if we could just get this to go on a bigger level, I think that. If everybody had the open honesty and integrity to sit down and do this, and just even though
I agree,
we may not. There are things I know that we don't agree on, but we can sit down like men and just talk it out.
Yeah, and to be totally honest, I would love to get even other sheriffs involved in a room.
Right.
Community members,
right.
People from the public,
right.
All sit at a table. I plan on doing something, if I'm elected, I plan on doing something pretty similar with the deputies and communications and records. I want to get in, talk to them, ask them what they need
right.
to do their jobs better, what they want to do their jobs better, what's going to make you happier, what's going to make you more effective, because I would very much like to, instead of, like monthly department meetings, where a lot of people come in and the head of department gives a report. I want one of the members of that department to do it every month. I don't want to hear from just the guy running the department.
Right.
I want to hear from the, from the staff what actually make that department up.
Right.
Hey, so-and-so, you're given the quarterly report, the quarterly operations report this month. Because unless you know what every person at every level is going through and what challenges they face and what can help them to do their job better from that person, you're never going to know the whole truth. If you count on their superiors to tell you what they're thinking, what they need, what they want to be better at their jobs, you're not going to get accurate information.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. There's always room to, cover your own tracks. That's back to transparency. You're definitely transparent, man, and I really appreciate that.
I've been accused a couple of times of having zero filter. So I would.
You do, believe it or not, man. Oh, that's great.
You're not going to get anything that's sugar coated or adjusted in any way. what pops in my head is what comes out of my mouth. So.
And that's great. That's what we want. That's what we want. Well, Brian, man, I really appreciate you.
Man, thanks for having it.
Thanks
I
a lot.
appreciate it, man. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate everybody for keeping up. This looks like an hour and 16 minutes, so if you guys watched it all, I really appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
challenge you to watch it all.
Please do. Please do. Thank y'all. And thank the Lake of the Ozarks Board of Realtors for hosting us here at this place. I really appreciate them.
Huge thanks.
Huge thanks. Thank you, guys.